Hello everyone, I'm Mark Clay, one of the regional ministers here in the EMBA. Just wanted to share a few thoughts with you in this Easter season. I read a poem some years ago called I Don't Believe in Air by Steve Turner in his book The King of the Twist, and I'd like to share it with you. I don't believe in air. No one's ever seen it. No one's ever felt it between finger and thumb. Converts talk about tasting the air and smelling the air, but there's always another explanation. The nearby sea, a factory pipe, the pile of fresh manure. It's not the so-called air that smells. Scientists have complete faith in this air. They say it upholds and sustains our world. Take away the air, they argue, and we'd go too. Meteorologists attribute signs and wonders to the air. People being thrown to the ground, trees being uprooted, the landscape rearranged. It sounds like superstition to me. If there is air, who made it? Where does it all go? Why doesn't it show itself just one time for proof? Friends ask me why windows rattle and hair go awry. But I don't believe in air. I don't believe in air. Air is just another word for something that's not there. When it comes to the Easter story, there are lots of people in our world, in our communities, who would say the same kind of things. And when we read of the events of that first Easter, we could have counted the first disciples among those non-believers. It was a day none of the disciples ever thought would come. Jesus, the wonder worker, the leader, the teacher, was dead, tried, convicted and crucified as a common criminal. They'd stood by as the trumped-up charges were read. They'd said nothing as the false witnesses were brought in. They'd been speechless when Pilate handed him over to be crucified. They could do nothing as his hands, the hands of a healer, had nails driven through them. They watched as his feet, that always seemed to find their way to those in need, suffered the same fate. What had he done to deserve this? Told stories, healed people, fed people, taught and blessed people, shown them a new way to understand the old teachings about God. For which of these things did he deserve to die? And then comes that memorable morning when the women run into the room breathless, tears in their eyes and a new bounce of joy and hope in their stride. They come in shouting and waving their arms, Jesus is alive! Can you imagine for a moment what those followers of Jesus thought when Mary came running back from the tomb and told them that Jesus was alive? Well, we don't have to imagine how they reacted. The gospel narratives tell us. They had seen their friend tortured, crucified, dead and buried. What was their reaction? They thought Mary was mad, that she'd seen a ghost, or that she was hallucinating with grief. The last thing they believed was that Jesus had come back from the dead, because no one does that. So if this Easter you doubt the truth of the resurrection of Christ, if you say you don't believe it, if you want to find other ways of explaining it away, then you wouldn't be alone. You were in the company of those original disciples of Jesus. But the difference is they came to realise that what happened to Jesus was not just a bad dream, but part of a greater plan. They knew his trial and death were real, they were there. They knew that he had died, they were there. But they also came to know that he had risen from the dead. How? Well, quite simply, they met him. The women met him at the tomb. 2 disciples walking along a country road had breakfast with him. He appeared among the disciples themselves in a locked room. They touched his wounds. They saw him eat. They spoke with him. They didn't just come to believe, that Jesus had risen from the dead. They came to know it so powerfully that they were willing to give their lives rather than deny that reality. That knowledge changed their lives and our world forever, and it still does. Friends, this Easter, in all our church services, we cannot prove that Jesus rose from the dead. We cannot prove that he is alive today. All we can do is share the story of how we have met with him and how that meeting has changed our lives forever. This is the story of hundreds of us, millions of us across the world today and down over 2,000 years of history. You see, the gospel is not about proof. The New Testament is just the written stories of people who were there and saw and experienced these things. They then wrote what they understood them to mean. They wrote them down so that you and I might believe with them that Jesus is alive. The events of that first Easter Sunday are either the most important events in the history of the world or the biggest hoax that has ever been played on the world. I've never seen Jesus or touched him or heard his voice. But I know that he lives just as certainly as I know I do. I came to that certain realization not through my training at theological college, not through education or Bible study, not through indoctrination or reading or argument. I came to that sure knowledge when I simply prayed and asked him to be my Lord at the age of 15. By asking him to meet with me, to give me the new life that he promises to those who believe in him. That simple prayer changed the whole course of my life, and I have never been the same again. Friends, this Easter, we are called in our churches to tell the world, anyone who will hear, this incredible life-changing story of Jesus, why he came, why he died, and why he rose again from the dead. We're called to shout out to a world that says they don't believe it, why we do believe it. So let's not be shy. Let's not hold back. Let's shout until breathless, like Mary returning from the empty tomb. Jesus is alive. Let's shout from every church across the EMBA, across the country and across the world. Jesus is alive. I pray for you and all our church family across this association that this Easter we will know and experience the resurrection power of Christ in our lives and in our churches. Jesus is alive. Hallelujah.